we're taking this car on our biggest road trip ever. But first, our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So check the video description for full details and to enter. Hello everyone. Welcome to what has recently become my favourite member of the Classics World project car fleet, our 1977 Mk3 Cortina. When you last saw our South African import, I drove it to Ford Fair in a convoy of blue ovals, old and new. Now after I filmed that video, it went to Classics monthly editor Simon Goldsworthy for him to complete the car's UK registration and start doing some work on it. Now he's had the car for a few months and a lot's been done to it since. He can probably tell you far better than I can everything that's been done in fact. So why don't we let Simon talk us through what's involved with getting a South African import registered in the UK.
The company that imported it had filled out I think it's a Nova form, the declaration for getting it into the country. So all the DVLA wanted to know really was that it was what we said it was. It's this particular car with this chassis number, it's not been ringed with anything else, and that all the taxes have been paid. So yeah, really not that complicated because a good half of the process had been done already by the importer. MOT, it's MOT exempt. It used to be the case, I think you had to have an MOT when it came into the country before you could register it. You don't now, so what we did, we took it to the local specialist and we had an MOT style inspection. And there wasn't an awful lot that they turned up that needed doing, but it was all stuff we could add to the list and do at the same time. Our biggest problem was that the DVLA in Swansea were going through a lot of turmoil at the time. They did ask for a whole load of pictures, some very obscure ones. The whole of the headlining, fuel filler pipe inside the boot, various views under the car, close-ups of the chassis plates. They give you maybe a dozen random pictures and it just makes it that much harder if you are trying to fake it because you haven't got a complete car that you can't take the picture of. But I sent off the pictures, didn't hear any more, and then just wait. And that was the biggest thing, that what should have taken a couple of weeks took I think about 7 or 8 weeks in the end, but then I just got a letter with a new registration document and yeah, we were good to go.
So now she's got British plates on, what else has been done to the old girl?
Some mechanical stuff, track rod ends, steering gaiters, a lot of stuff that we'd figured out when we first inspected it that needed doing. The alternator has been changed. I mean, this is all very simple stuff. We put a mileometer speedo in it. The biggest stuff has been bodywork. Probably 70% of our work has been invested in the bodywork, and you can't see any difference because it looked this beautiful when we got it. The only thing you could see is right here, little ding where it had gone through the paint. Looks perfect now. We've resprayed this centre section of the bonnet after repairing that. Inner sills at the back, floor pan under the driver's seat that had collapsed, inner sill and A post over on that side, the whole of the spare wheel well in the boot, and the worst one, the real nasty one, up under the back window by the boot hinge, where the hinge had all rusted away. But it's all good as new now, be good for another 40 years, and yeah, delighted with how it's turned out.
I've had the Cortina at home for a few weeks now, and I've done some work to it too. The car was running rich and stumbling at higher revs, so I adjusted the mixture and idle on the carburettor. Then I replaced the crumbling vacuum advance hose with a brand new one, and with those two quick fixes, the old girl had her sparkle back. Now after a few days of heavy rain, the car was starting to fill with water in the footwells, which is never a good thing for a classic car. After a bit of investigation, I traced it to the door seals at the front being knackered and just crumbling in your hands. They're probably the originals from 1977, and being in the hot climate of South Africa won't have done them any favours. Thankfully though, replacements are cheap and easy to come by, so I changed both the door seals over, and sure enough, that cured all our leaks. The other thing I noticed in regular use of the car was quite how awkward the seat belts were. You might remember the original ones the car used to have, and they were where you clip them into place and then tighten them down so they actually hold you and stop you flying forward if you brake hard. You couldn't lean forward and open the glove box or reach a parking machine for a ticket. But here's a little bit of trivia for you. For about the last 50 or 60 years, all car manufacturers pretty much have used the same bolt size, pitch and thread for their seat belts, and that means that seat belts from pretty much any car will fit pretty much any other car. So I pulled out a spare set of Fiat Seicento belts I had and bolted them straight in. Now these are modern inertia reel belts, which means you just clip it in and of course it adjusts to the size of your body, but if you do brake hard, they do lock up. The temperature of this car has always been a bit of a sticking point. The heater has never worked and the temperature gauge barely creeps above freezing cold. Now I put that down to a failed thermostat potentially, and then Jeff made a very good point. Being a South African car, it's entirely possible this Cortina might have a South African thermostat in it, which is designed to run in a hotter climate so it doesn't open at as high of a temperature as we'd like in Britain. And sure enough, when I pulled it out, the thermostat in the car was an 82-degree one, whereas the British replacement one I'd sourced was 88. With the new thermostat in, the car was running at the correct temperature, but the heater still wasn't really working. It turns out the South African cars have a smaller heater box with a different heater matrix that, even with a correct UK thermostat in, don't ever really get warm. I called out to the Cortina community, and a chap who'd fitted a Rover V8 into his Mk3 came to my rescue. Space was at a premium in his engine bay, so we agreed a straight swap of our smaller SA spec heater box for his UK unit, complete with a functioning heater matrix. So I pulled out our heater box, put in the UK spec one, and took the bottom hose out, drained all that orange rusty coolant that was in the car, and flushed it through before putting 4 litres of fresh, correct spec coolant, and after bleeding it all out, the car now has a heater. Now granted, you might be able to tell it's not really the day to need a heater in the car, but with a classic, particularly if you're going to go on long trips in it, you do want a heater to have that extra capacity to cool the car down a bit if you end up in traffic. And talking of long trips, that's a perfect segue into our plans for the Cortina. We've got an epic plan in store for it. We're taking this car on our biggest road trip ever. Into Europe, in fact. We're going on the Classic Ford Tour 2022. We're taking the Mk3 to Belgium, in fact. Around about a 600-mile round trip in this car with all manner of other incredible classic Fords and some very enthusiastic owners. That's right, our 45-year-old Cortina is going to Bruges. And what's more, you're coming with us. Stay tuned for the full road trip video for that, as well as a couple of little bonus videos that we've got planned for the full classic Ford experience. But for now, I've got a sunny day, a winding country road, and a beautiful Mk3 Cortina to play with. See you again soon. This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link in the video description to enter their latest competition.